Hi, I'm Drake, the product owner of Lupine here at Gain. Lupine is a tool that helps website teams decide what they should optimize, why, and how they can execute on it. In this series, we're going to go over all the how-tos for Lupine, ranging from getting started, to running an analysis, to generating and exporting variants. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Lupine. Lupine helps you optimize your website and improve your user's experience, and thus improve the core metrics that you care about. When you first get into Lupine, this is what you'll see. You can go to the dashboard to see previously run analyses. You'll also see Start a New Analysis. Here you can plug in any URL you'd like to analyze and decide if you'd like a desktop analysis or a mobile analysis. And hit Analyze. There's no code or no snippet required to get started. So this analysis will run for about 15 minutes, but you can close the page and come back to it and it will continue running. What's going on here is Lupine is beginning to scan the page and understand the components. It's beginning to make observations, hypotheses, identify problems, and surface potential experiment ideas. You can see the tabs on the left sidebar here: components, observations, problems, root causes, hypotheses, and experiments. Very much mirror the types of steps a top-tier consultant would take when analyzing a site. We'll talk a little bit more about each of these steps in the next how-to. Amazing. Our analysis just finished running. The 15-minute runtime is over. You can see we've immediately landed on problems, such as competing task paths in the hero, or inconsistent CTA treatment across modules. These represent the potential friction or opportunities to try to improve the page. Now, where did these come from? Well, the first thing Lupine did here is it grabbed some of the components and it scraped the page. You can see the header navigation, the header search trigger. You can see the bounding boxes here on the right for all the different components. The search headline, doctor search form. It took these components and began to make observations about them, the same way a human analyst would. Two-tiered headered rows, multiple audience links present, header search is on the far right, search cards overlap the hero. These are more design-focused, more spacing-focused, and they begin to draw patterns. And when clustered under a friction lens, they become these problems. Specialty browsing feels a little bit undifferentiated. It's looking at this section right here. Now it takes it a step further, and once you have these problems, it looks at the root causes. These represent the why. Why do these problems exist? And these are very much aligned with the levers framework. The levers framework is gain conversions classification of all of the different types of potential friction out there. It's a framework that's been in practice for years and years across a number of clients at the top of the market. And beyond root causes, they then take it to the what if. This is the hypothesis, the directional, what can we change about this to try to address the problem in a way that's consistent with the nature of the root cause. Stronger queue improves flow, added structure speeds discovery. That's relating to this section right here. And then it takes it one more step, which is the experiments. The experiments are the exact executions that are being proposed. And this one here, to follow the example, introduce specialty filtering controls. You can look here and you can see the full reasoning as well. On the right sidebar is usually where you can deep dive into some of these experiments or any of these pieces. Add a lightweight filtering and grouping within the specialty section to reduce the effective choice set and improve scan efficiency without removing existing specialty destinations. Now, this is a usability related suggestion. You can see this prioritization score out of 10. This comes from a Confidence AI model owned by Conversion. It's an ML model that can begin to guess what's more likely to win based on which levers are present and the nature of the problem and the root cause and the experiment idea. You can see some UX observations, specialty presented in grid, some of the best practices from Conversion's repository. Progressive disclosure manages the complexity, or category browsing needs the structure regarding this section. And then here are the variants. There are two variants for this experiment idea about introducing specialty filtering controls. The first is, why don't you add a search within the specialties? And second is an A to Z filter tab. And you can look at the specs. The specs are the design details. This is the exact execution that is being proposed. It has things like styling intent, responsiveness rules. So it details exactly what the change is for both of these. And you can see there's a lot of content here, but the analysis can be summarized by this visual map. This visual map, first it's a little complicated, but it represents each of the reasoning steps, all of the logical flows from problem, specialty browsing feels undifferentiated, to the root cause, large option set increases the load, to the next step, the hypothesis, added structure speeds discovery, and introduce specialty filtering controls, and then ultimately these variations. So you can see the full reasoning step by step here. And the next step is, of course, you can begin to view these experiments, and you can look at exactly what these variants are visually, not just in text. But we'll talk about that in the next how-to video. Previously, we discussed how to initiate an analysis and how to look through the different pieces of an analysis, as well as the list view and the visual map view for an analysis. Lupine is built to be a tool that promotes people into decision makers and strategists. Its goal here is to make all of the reasoning as transparent and verifiable as possible, so that it's easily communicatable and well defensible when new ideas are proposed or experiments are pursued. And the final step in this that we've yet to discuss is visualizing variance. And as you can see, if you select any of these experiments or hover over them, you can see this Approve Experiment button. Now, if you hit this Approve Experiment button, you'll be able to go and visualize what the proposed changes are. You can generate variant A if you remember the specs down here. You can generate different variants. And you can also begin to see approved ideas in the backlog. The backlog is over here, and all approved ideas experiments will be here. Now, let's go back and look at one of the experiments that's already run. Generating those variants takes about a minute. So here is one that's already been approved and generated. Again, you can generate these. And here's what this change was requesting: and introduce specialty filtering controls. And you can see the before and the after. This is a full resolution wireframe that's been generated based on the design spec that Lupine recommended. On the left here is the status quo, and on the right is the changed version. So again, here is the original, and here is the change. You can see this filter that's been added in for you to be able to visualize that will help address some of the problem that was introduced. Specialty browsing feels undifferentiated, and it's a little bit hard to navigate these. This is the optimization that will help address that. You can see an opacity view. Here is the original, here's the after. You can see a differentiation matrix. What's in red is the change here. And of course, you can also view multiple variants. In this case, we hadn't yet generated variant B, but you can view both variants as well as the control. What Lupine has done here is it has made it easy to socialize and show what the exact change is. So it can go along to the next step, whether it's to a designer to brush this up or a developer to implement this, to try to streamline the communication of what the change actually is. Hey folks, if you remember where we left off, we were discussing how to generate variants and how to look at them. Again, here's the before and here's the after for one of the Lupine suggestions. Now, once you're here, you're able to export these ideas. And you can export them either in the form of an executive presentation, a PDF, or as raw data. If we hit raw data, it'll appear in our downloads. Here we go. We're able to see a couple of things here. First, we're able to see the full reasoning chain. This is the problem, the root cause, the hypotheses, the experiments, the variants. Here's the design specs, as well as some of the best practices. all the things you need to understand the Lupine suggestion. You're also able to see all of the images. If you wanted to see variant A, here is a PNG wireframe, full wireframe for variant A and variant B, as well as the control. And here's the full page screenshot as well. Now, if we wanted to go for an executive presentation, you can now customize the deck, and you can see all of the steps in the reasoning chain: problems and the root causes, hypotheses and the test, the solutions. So here's variant A and variant B. A bit of a closer look at variant A. Here are our specialty filtering tabs, variant B, and a closing slide. You can hit export PDF, or you can edit any of these titles. So you're done. And this will take about a minute. But the result of this is in your downloads, you'll have the full PDF that you can share with the rest of your team. And that's where Lupine can begin to operationalize the process, where it's not just recommending tests, but it's also telling you how you can go forward with the next steps and share with the rest of your team. Now we're going to talk about how you can add business context and pre-analysis instructions. This is something you can do once you've identified a URL you want to run on. And you can click either add context, site context, or analysis context. This is something that allows you to tailor your analyses to a particular focus, to a particular lever, add competitor analysis, add some data in, and flavor the analysis in a way that, makes sense for your focus. Say we wanted to click add analysis. There's a site context and there is an analysis context. The analysis context is specific to this run. If you save this analysis context and hit run for the URL, it will only be relevant for that analysis. Whereas site context persists across the domain whenever you run any URL within that domain. So say I ran Cedar Sinai's, the site context there would be relevant to both the doctor page and the About Us page if I wanted to run that URL as well. There are a couple different categories: brand voice, audience, offer and business model, positioning and differentiators, vocab and constraints. Analysis context has a couple of categories too: focus and skip, visitor segment, past tests and learning, analytics and insights, primary KPIs, and approach and creativity. You can put whatever you'd like in this text box within reason, but these are some recommendations to get you started. So say within this analysis context, I wanted to have bigger design swings, more creatively ambitious concepts that could potentially go viral, or contrarian copy, or perhaps push for boldness. These are some of the ideas that are already baked in. And say I wanted to run an analysis like this, and say I wanted to add, maybe brand voice or some elements here, and I didn't want to include the site context, for example. You can decide to or to not include it. You can save this context, and then you can hit analyze. And it'll run like every other analysis. Now I've already run it, so we can take a little bit of a view as to what this broader design swings look like. By the way, you can see the prompt or the context that you added in once you've run an analysis by clicking this icon here. And here's some of the ideas that it came with. Primary care fast lane hub. If you look at the experiment, these are broader, bigger design swings. You can see the before and after. It's more drastic of a change. Here's another example, quite a big design change as opposed to just copy. And here's another example, specialty finder interactive atlas. This one's a little bit more of a interesting shot, but it added this whole graphic to bring these specialties into a visual. Now, you can also access the memory on the left-hand tab here by clicking memory. And again, this tracks the site level context. So any site that you've added site level context to, it will retain that across runs. So here you can add site level context, perhaps It didn't save previously because I had clicked do not include site context, but this will persist across all Cedars-Sinai runs here on out if I save this. And that's the memory feature and the business context and pre-analysis feature. Excited to announce a new feature in Lupine, live page capture, where you can point Lupine at any state of the website you're analyzing, not just the default one. So previously, Lupine could only analyze the default view, even though some of the more important user experiences might live behind dynamic states. Like, say you want to open the navigation bar to analyze what that bar looks like. You now can. Or you can close pop-ups or modals, you can open location selectors, you can even access views that require a login by typing, or you can open and close accordions or switch tabs. And this is what this feature allows you to do, to basically navigate through the page and select the final state that you want analyzed. So why don't we take a look at what this looks like. You can run a URL and we can add context. We can hit analyze. And Lupine will take a moment to open a live browser session where we're able to interact with the page directly within Lupine. You can also skip this step if you know that the starting view is the one that you want analyzed. But here's what it looks like. So here's the Find a Doctor page. And previously, clicking any of these would be SPA blocked or single page application blocked. So we wouldn't really be able to access any of these subcategories or subspecialties in the analysis. And it would just analyze the view that you see. But now we can go through and we can click through and I can select the version of the page that I like. I can even, type in a certain zip code, or I can, can select this one. I can even log in by typing in login information that, previously Lupine would not have access to. Or I can go and I can interact with the page however I'd like, or again, I can open the navigation and I could, if I wanted, I could say, hey, looks good. Let's start the analysis in this view, and it would analyze the navigation bar option. Or I can click through in any of these, and if you do navigate to a different page, the URL will change up here as well. But overall, I can just set the state of the page to the one that I want analyzed, and then I can say, it looks good. Let's start the analysis. Or I can do any other modifications first. Now, there is an automatic timer so that if the 2-minute timer runs out, it will automatically run the version of the state that you're on, the version of the page that you're on, or you can just say, looks good, start analysis. And yeah, then the analysis will run. Here's an example of what a run one looks like. This was, again, previously a page that was not accessible to Lupine before since you needed to navigate in the page, but now we're able to analyze it. So it unlocks a whole new different caliber of pages that you can run. Again, I think an interesting application is if one is login blocked or password protected or requires a PIN to get to that page or requires some information that you need to input. You're now able to access those as well. Again, you can type and manipulate the page.